Hey everyone, diving right in today, we're going to be tackling this whole potential TikTok ban in the US.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you're prepping for a meeting on this.
Right.
Maybe you're just trying to catch up on everything that's going on.
A lot.
Or maybe you're just curious.
I mean, who isn't?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've got some excerpts from this legal article, and it breaks down what went down at the Supreme Court.
Oh, wow.
So we're really getting into some major questions here, like, will the Supreme Court even let this ban stand?
Right.
What were the arguments for and against it?
Yeah.
And then what happens next, especially with this January 19th deadline coming up so fast?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
That's right around the corner.
It is. So, one thing I found really interesting is that the First Amendment argument, which you'd think would be like the main thing everyone's talking about,
Yeah.
it didn't really seem to sway the justices all that much.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? It's like, it's almost like free speech kind of took a back seat in all of this.
Yeah. I was actually really struck by Chief Justice Roberts' comments.
Oh, okay.
He basically said that, Congress isn't so much bothered by what people are actually saying on TikTok, but they're really worried about a foreign power potentially like controlling all the data behind it.
Yeah, so this kind of, goes along with this pattern that we've seen where the court historically has given a lot of leeway to, other branches of government when it comes to national security.
Right.
And, the government's argument basically boils down to this. TikTok user data is like a gold mine. It's a gold mine that China could use for, things like harassment, recruitment, espionage, all that scary stuff.
Right.
That's their big fear.
Okay, so that makes sense, but here's where I get a little tripped up.
Okay.
Like, we know tons of companies, even media outlets, are foreign-owned.
Right.
So what makes TikTok like this unique threat in their eyes? Why TikTok and not, anything else?
That's a great question. And, the government's really trying to draw a line here.
Okay.
It's not just about who owns the company. It's about how TikTok works.
Okay.
Its algorithm, how it collects data on users, like way deep data.
Okay.
Justice Gorsuch actually brought up this example of a foreign-owned newspaper.
Oh, interesting.
And, he was saying, surely that's fine, right?
Right, yeah.
Well, the government's saying social media is different.
Oh, okay.
It's built to give each person their own little world, their own feed, their own content.
Right.
And they're saying, that could let China manipulate users in ways that we can't even detect.
So it's not even about the content itself. It's about, like, how they choose what to show you.
Exactly.
That is kind of creepy when you think about it.
It is, yeah. And it's about how they could misuse all that data they're collecting.
Right.
We all know TikTok gathers information on, like, everything. Where you are, what you watch, even how long you watch certain videos. They're afraid that China could use all this to build these really detailed profiles, like dossiers almost, on individual users, and then use that for who knows what.
Right. Okay, let's go back to the Supreme Court arguments for a second.
Okay.
Justice Gorsuch really seemed to be pushing back on the idea of a full ban. Right.
He did. He was definitely the most skeptical of everyone there.
Okay.
He was asking a lot of questions that suggested maybe the answer isn't to just, completely shut down TikTok.
Right.
But maybe to counter potentially harmful speech with more speech.
Oh, interesting.
Things like, disclaimers or warnings. He even said maybe TikTok could put something on their website.
Okay.
That says, like, hey, what you're seeing might be influenced by the Chinese government.
Right, I see.
But the government pushed back on that. They said that users just naturally assume that what they're seeing is, like, organically chosen for them.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think most of us do. We just kind of scroll and scroll. We don't think about how those videos ended up on our screens.
Exactly. It's that subtle manipulation.
Right.
That seems to be what they're most worried about.
Right.
And then, you have Justice Kagan. She brought up this really interesting point about communist propaganda during the Cold War.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She was basically saying, like, haven't we dealt with foreign influence before?
Right.
Is this really a new threat?
And what did the government say to that? Did they address that directly?
They did, and they said that this is different.
Okay.
They pointed to how much data TikTok is collecting and how sophisticated it all is, and the algorithm, how powerful it is.
Right.
They're saying this is a level of influence we haven't seen before.
So it's kind of like this clash between national security and free speech playing out, and then there are these concerns about the data, and is this really a new threat or not?
Hmm.
And then there's the January 19th deadline, which is right around the corner.
Yeah.
What did TikTok's lawyer even say would happen if the ban isn't blocked?
He was pretty blunt, actually. He said that it would be the end of TikTok as we know it.
Oh, wow.
Removed from the app stores, no more updates. Eventually, it would just become unusable.
That's a scary picture for a lot of people.
It is, yeah.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
What about the new president? They could just choose to not enforce the ban, right?
Yeah, that's true. They could, and that just adds another layer of uncertainty.
All right.
But Justice Sotomayor brought up a really good point.
Okay.
Just because a president doesn't enforce a law doesn't mean it goes away.
Oh, right, right.
TikTok would still technically be violating the law. And, she warned that if companies just ignore the law like that, it could set a dangerous precedent.
So even if TikTok survives this, their future is still pretty shaky. It's like they're walking a tightrope and there's no safety net.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So let's go back to TikTok's lawyer for a second. What were their main arguments against the ban?
Well, they basically said that all these fears about, what they could do with the data, it's all hypothetical.
Oh.
They're saying there's no proof that the Chinese government has actually done anything bad with it.
So it's like they're saying, show me the proof.
Exactly.
Not just, what could potentially happen.
Right. And, they also made a big deal about free speech, saying that the ban is way too broad and that it would stop all kinds of expression on the platform.
Right, because I think when people think of TikTok, they think of dance challenges and funny videos.
Right, the fun stuff.
Right. But obviously it's more than that.
It is. It's become a place for politics, activism, art.
Right, right.
And they're saying that a ban would silence all those voices.
So it's not just about those viral videos, it's about a lot more.
Exactly. And they also talked about all the things that TikTok has done to try to fix these problems.
Okay.
Like storing U.S. user data here in the U.S.
Okay.
And they're working with a third-party security company to make things more secure.
So they're really trying to show that they're taking it seriously.
Yeah, they want to look proactive about security.
Right.
Even though they don't think a ban is necessary.
Right, of course. But the government's counterargument was that it's not enough.
Right.
They're saying as long as ByteDance, which is TikTok's parent company in China, as long as they own the platform, the risk is still there.
Right.
So that brings us back to this whole divestiture thing.
Right, yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know, that basically means selling off a part of a company. Didn't Congress basically tell TikTok to either sell their U.S. operations or face a shutdown?
That's the main issue.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is where it gets really tricky.
Okay.
Even if the Supreme Court sides with the government and keeps the ban, this whole thing might not be over.
Wait, really? How could that be?
Well, remember, the new president has some leeway when it comes to actually enforcing laws.
Right.
So they could delay the ban, they could even reverse it.
Wow.
And that could open the door for more negotiations or maybe some kind of compromise.
So even if the court rules against them, TikTok might still find a way to operate in the U.S.
It's possible, although it would probably mean ByteDance would have to give up a lot, maybe even sell off TikTok's U.S. operations completely.
So even with the Supreme Court, kind of looming over everything, TikTok's fate is still up in the air.
Totally. Absolutely.
It's wild. And, this whole case has implications that go way beyond just one app.
Oh, absolutely.
It brings up these huge questions about balancing national security with free speech in the digital age.
Yeah.
And about how much power these tech giants really have.
Right. And what the government's role should be in all of this.
It's a huge can of worms.
It is. It's like Pandora's box. You open it and, where do you draw the line? If we start banning apps based on national security, what's next?
That's the big question. That's what makes this so significant. This could be the case that sets the rules for how the U.S. government deals with any foreign tech company that's operating here.
So it's really not just about TikTok.
Nope.
It's about the whole future of the internet.
The whole thing.
Wow.
It's a huge deal.
It is. And it feels like we're just at the beginning of all of this.
Yeah, we are. We're at the beginning. This whole situation really makes you think about trust.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Can we really trust these tech companies with all this data they're collecting?
Right.
And can we trust governments to regulate them without going too far?
It's like a three-way trust fall.
Yeah.
And everyone's kind of wobbly right now.
Definitely no easy answers.
No, not at all, but
it's something we have to talk about.
yeah, we have to. This case has really shown that we need more transparency and a lot more honesty.
Oh, absolutely.
And this isn't just an American problem either.
Right, exactly. It's global. TikTok is everywhere.
It is.
So what happens here in the U.S. could impact the whole world.
Oh, yeah. Other countries were watching this very closely.
Oh, I bet.
And they might do the same thing.
Wow. So we're not just talking about the future of the internet in America.
Nope.
We're talking about the whole thing.
The whole world.
It's a huge responsibility.
It really is.
It feels like we're at this crossroads deciding what kind of internet we want to have.
Yeah, and it's not just up to governments and companies to make that decision.
Right.
We, the users, have a say too.
So what can the average person even do? It feels so overwhelming.
Well, first, you got to understand how these platforms work.
Okay.
What data they collect, how they can use it.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Demand transparency.
Right.
And support groups fighting for digital rights and responsible tech.
I think a lot of people feel kind of powerless against these big tech companies.
I understand that. But these companies are only powerful because we use them.
That's a good point.
We have the power to hold them accountable.
So shifting gears a little.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about the potential ban, but what happens if the Supreme Court actually upholds it?
Ooh, good question.
What would that mean for other foreign-owned tech companies here in the U.S.?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because if it happens, it sets a major precedent.
Okay.
It would basically say the U.S. government can restrict or ban foreign tech companies if they think they're a risk to national security.
So it's not just about TikTok anymore.
No, it's much bigger now.
Could be like a domino effect.
Exactly.
What about companies like Tencent or Alibaba?
Exactly.
They're huge.
They are.
This could impact them too.
Definitely.
And what about global trade? What about relations with China? I mean, they're not just going to ignore this.
You're absolutely right. This could turn into a trade war.
Oh.
With China retaliating against U.S. companies over there.
It's a lot.
It's a very delicate situation.
Yeah.
With very high stakes.
It feels like this is just the tip of the iceberg.
It is.
This is about the global economy, international relations,
Yep.
the future of the internet.
All of it.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
Any last thoughts for our listeners?
Stay informed. Stay involved. Don't be afraid to ask those tough questions.
Yeah.
The future of the internet is happening right now, and we all have a part to play in it.
That's a great point. Thanks for walking us through this with us.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, we know this is a lot to take in, but that's what the deep dive is all about, right?
That's right.
Pushing those boundaries of knowledge and really getting us to think critically.
Absolutely.
Stick with us. We've got more to uncover as we keep going down this rabbit hole. Okay, so we're back and ready to really get into this TikTok thing. We've talked about, the legal stuff, the national security worries, what it could do to the economy, even global stuff.
Right.
But there's this whole other side to it we haven't really touched on yet.
Mm-hmm.
The people.
The human side of it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget about that when we're talking about all these big ideas,
Yeah, totally.
At the end of the day, it's about people's lives.
Exactly.
All those millions of users who are on TikTok.
Right. It's their connection, their creative outlet, even their jobs for some people.
Right.
We talked about it a little before, but imagine you're someone who's built their whole career on TikTok.
Yeah.
You've got your audience, you're making money, you found your people, and then suddenly, boom, it's gone.
It could all be taken away. It's a lot of uncertainty.
It's got to be so stressful for those people.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Their whole future is just hanging there, depending on what some court or government decides.
And they have no control over it.
It's a good reminder that this isn't just some legal battle happening in a vacuum.
Right. Real people are going to be affected by this.
Absolutely.
And it's not even just the creators, it's everyone around them, too.
Right, yeah. Think about their managers, the agents, the brands that work with them.
Mm-hmm.
They all depend on TikTok, too.
Right. And then you have the fans, all the people who use the app every day.
Millions of them.
What happens to them? What happens to those communities if TikTok just vanishes?
That's a good question. It makes you think about what we actually value online.
Right.
Are these apps just, a way to pass the time, or are they something more?
Yeah, yeah.
Real places where people connect and build communities.
Right. And if they are more than that, then how do we protect them?
Right.
How do we balance, keeping people safe with letting people do their thing online?
It's tough, yeah. There are no easy answers.
No, but this whole case has made us start asking those tough questions.
It has. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe this is what we needed to finally have a real conversation about what technology means in our lives and how we want to, deal with it in the future.
I think you're right. It's easy to get caught up in the fear and all the news headlines, but we need to step back and think about the people who will actually be affected by all of this. What kind of online world do we want?
Right.
What's important to us? Those are the questions we need to be asking ourselves.
It's kind of scary, but it's also exciting, you know?
Yeah.
We have this chance to shape the future, to build a digital world that works for everyone.
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
It's not just about avoiding bad stuff. It's about creating something good.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this whole deep dive, I'm feeling, I don't know, cautiously optimistic. Like, yeah, it's complicated, the stakes are high, and we don't have all the answers.
Right.
But I also see this as a chance to really talk about how technology fits into our lives and to work together to make it something that benefits all of us.
I agree. It's all about balance between security and freedom, innovation and responsibility, individual rights, and what's good for everyone.
Yeah. Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything on this TikTok thing. Huge thanks to you for being here and sharing all this with us.
It was my pleasure, really.
It's been a great conversation.
Yeah.
And to everyone listening, we hope this has given you a better idea of what's going on with this case and why it matters. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep diving deep. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.